terms. It takes time with people, because conversation takes time, and it takes trust and goodwill. Those are three things. You have to have time, which is a sacrifice to give up your time. You have to have goodwill, and you have to trust the best intentions of the other person. So once that's established, I mean, that's a lot
It is a
of
lot.
what is at the foundation right now. Is there's a lack of trust, a lack of time, which is coming from, sound bites all the time. So that's the beginning of it. You were going to say something, though. I want to hear what you're going to say.
Well, I think what you're talking about, we'll take a little break, but when we come back, you're talking about relationship building. Those are
Yes.
three pillars: time, trust, goodwill. You can only build good relationships if you have those as a foundation. So when we come back, let's talk more about that. How do we build those good relationships in the church? WNDZ 750 AM on your dial. Catholic Chicago, 312-255-8408. You can also go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago and watch us today on the radio. We'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
Do you have a gently used laptop or desktop computer that is gathering dust in your home? Consider donating to our Catholic Charities Veterans Computer Project. We will clean out your device, give it new software, and repurpose it for a veteran who is looking for employment. Your gift will make an incredible difference in a veteran's ability to find a job. Catholic Charities provides veteran services throughout Lake and suburban Cook counties, giving participants an array of professional and personal support. Our veterans have served our country, and it is our privilege to serve them. To learn more about Catholic Charities Veterans Services and the Veterans Computer Project, call 847-782-4219. That's 847-782-4219.
We're back. Catholic Chicago, WNDZ 750 AM on your dial, 312-255-8408, or you can go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Our guest this morning, our first guest is Dr. Linda Curry from the University of St. Mary of the Lake, and we're talking about the polarization of traditional and progressive Catholics. Before the break, you were talking about time, trust, and goodwill are three of the components that we need on either side of an issue to have I'd say an adult, mature discussion about our differences. How does that happen when I go to a dinner and one of my relatives is just spouting off about a lot of issues that he has no knowledge about? I mean, isn't knowledge part of one of those pillars?
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, we can't assume that knowledge is what's important. I mean, it's really relationships have to come before knowledge. I remember Francis Cardinal George saying at one point, is it more important to win or to be effective? Right? So this comes down to virtue and discipline. In the end, if you're at the proverbial Thanksgiving dinner, which is no longer proverbial, I mean, these Thanksgiving dinners happen where you bring everybody. You can't control your family, right? You can control your friends, but you can't control your family.
You can pick your friends.
And they all, what's that?
You can pick your friends. You can't pick your family.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so
that's an editorial comment.
Yes, thank you. So as you're sitting around with this ragtag team of people that come on in with all different kinds of backgrounds, especially if there's a few drinks involved, everything gets really out of hand quite quick. I think that the first thing we must look at is our Christian discipline. And this is the hardest part. I mean, I'm rereading Mere Christianity again by C.S. Lewis, which is such a foundational book. And really, in the end, if you don't base yourself in Christian virtue, because you're going to feel yourself being angry, you're going to feel yourself being frustrated, you're going to feel scared that somebody, oftentimes it brings up fear. And I think really, honestly, the first thing you have to do, I talk about this a lot when I teach, is the first thing you have to do, right? Not what everybody else has to do. You need to do is, as you begin to feel yourself having those negative emotions, which is going to be cortisol. It's essentially the stress hormone. You can feel it. You have to take a breath. It's like what I teach my kids, right? It's just we stop applying it when we're adults because for some reason we think it doesn't apply to us anymore. So you need to take a breath. Oxygen is available to everybody. Take 3 seconds. You can feel the cortisol reduce in your head because cortisol creates fuzzy thinking, lack of distinctions. You know, it's the fight or flight thing. It gets you to run away from a lion. So but that takes discipline.
Right.
So you have to apply discipline, right?
Now,
so I think that's the first thing.
What about, let me but move toward that discipline. And what are your thoughts about Cardinal Bernardine's seamless garment document in terms of how we look at issues?
So I think, once again, it's how we make distinctions. So in this world in which there's all these buzzwords and people find themselves extremely thrown into one camp or the other, as if they need to be the defenders of whatever issue they're taking on either side, right? Everybody's forgetting that you know, God's got this, right? Everybody's fears and shackles are really up. So the word seamless garment now is a buzzword. Even the word, even the name Cardinal Bernardine is a buzzword. Bernardine versus George. Okay. Benedict versus Francis. You know, it always goes into these polarizations. This is how the devil works. C.S. Lewis talks a lot about this. So seamless garment it's a wonderful metaphor. It's a wonderful metaphor. But because we can all work with this metaphor.
Right.
But what's assumed is that this particular metaphor is coming forth from an untrustworthy, some people would believe it's an untrustworthy source because Cardinal Bernardine has been thrown into a certain camp, and then they won't even discuss the distinctions of what seamless garment means because that takes time, that takes trust, and it takes assumption of goodwill.
Yeah, and in those situations, don't you feel sometimes people try to demonize the other person, the other point of view? So when you're talking about the devil, how he separates, that's part of it too, right?
Oh yeah, I mean it's a master plan, and we're all falling straight into it.
Right.
I mean, he's smart. He's smart. It's just the thing is, as a Catholic, I'm like, you guys, come on.
Well,
it's just, you read scripture, it's like he just does the same thing over and over and over and over again. And don't think we're above it, no matter which side you're on. Now, it's like if you're not disciplined in your virtues, he's just playing right into you.
Right. Now, pick an issue. I mean, you've listed a lot of them in this little bio I have. But pick an issue that polarizes us. And how do we deal with it now, and how would you suggest we can change some of how we deal with that issue?
Okay, let's go with the seamless garment, dignity of life, okay? So there's billions we can go with. But let's just say as Catholics, or even just as human beings, you don't even have to be Catholic to, you know, agree to the idea that there's a dignity to all life, right?
Exactly.
So then where we have to make distinctions is, first of all, what do we mean by life? Correct. And that's a long discussion. That brings up the abortion issue. Okay. That's a long discussion. And to have any kind of discussion about abortion and women's rights and choice takes a long time. You need to assume goodwill on the part of the other. You need to have trust, and really to go into a discussion not to convert people. Nobody wants to be an object of conversion. I don't want to talk to anybody who doesn't want to listen to me. If the whole time I'm talking, they're like, ooh, where can I get her to change her mind? That's like completely disrespectful and irritating.
Right.
You know?
Well,
you need to take the time to care and to listen where the person is coming from.
And adding to your time, trust, goodwill, as you're talking, another area that you should bring to the table, I would think, relationally, is compassion. That as people bring an issue to the table, listen with an ear that allows you. There may be pain connected to some of these issues that people are dealing with. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think that's absolutely true. So compassion takes time. You have to get your cortisol levels down. You have to see that that's a human, not a lion that's about to eat you, Like it's not. It's just a human being. It's just a conversation, right?
Right.
And then you need to really, and this gets into all the stuff of my dissertation.
Well, let's do this. Let's take a little break and come into those issues. And then the other question I want to ask you after the break is, you work with our seminarians, future religious leaders of our church. How do you work with them in terms of dealing with this issue of polarization? Because you have some traditional and some progressive seminarians. How do they work together on that? WNDZ 750 AM on your dial, Catholic Chicago. 312-255-8408. Mark Teresi here sitting in for Father Greg Sakowicz. You can also see us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. We'll be back with this fascinating conversation, Dr. Linda Curry, in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
I feel special. I feel great. I got good grades.
We've seen a huge surge in our kids now meeting or exceeding grade level. Come check us out. You may have never thought we were an option before.
There is so much waiting for you at Catholic Charities Senior Services. We offer programs and services to help make the most of every day. Friendships and fun are guaranteed at our drop-in senior centers. Our adult daycare centers offer enjoyment and greater supervision to seniors who need it, while their caregivers get a break. Holy Family Villa provides a beautiful, safe environment for seniors looking for short or long-term residential facility. And we offer assistance with senior benefits, care coordination, congregate and home-delivered meals, hospital transition, and much more. For more than 100 years, we have accompanied seniors through every transition in their lives, and we are here for you now. Catholic Charities is a name and an agency you can trust. Call Senior Services today at 312-655-7700. That's 312-655-7700.
Good morning. You're listening to Catholic Chicago, WNDZ 750 AM on your dial. You can also watch us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Mark Teresi here sitting in for Father Greg Sakowicz, and we're having a wonderful conversation. Dr. Linda Curry, University St. Mary of the Lake, and we're talking about her dissertation, The Polarization of Traditional and Progressive Catholics. Linda, before the break, we were going to lead into your dissertation. we only have one, our last segment here, but what I thought was maybe could you underscore two major themes that would cause people to want to find your dissertation and continue to study it?
Well, I think that in some ways, when I tend to be a very practical Catholic, because what difference does it make if it isn't practical, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that everybody's experiencing this, whether they're experiencing it because of politics or they're experiencing it because of COVID, that this polarization is sort of the tool, the handiwork of the devil right now. It's like the way that he's tricking us right now. He tricks people in all different generations. This is our deal right now. And so as you notice this happens, my dissertation would be good to read, but I think that there's other really good sources that you could go to that are a lot more handy than a dissertation. They're not the most fun thing to read. But I would really recommend a book by Boghossian and James Lindsay called How to Have Impossible Conversations.
So they can get that. People can get that on Amazon?
Yeah, get that on there. It's really good.
And the title again?
It's called How to Have Impossible Conversations.
Okay.
By Boghossian and Lindsay.
And
great.
You also mentioned Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. That would
right,
be...
and that is very important because what it brings up, he's so clear. I mean, he's like the best writer ever. Because I tend to find that poets and writers are better at understanding than theologians. Theologians, they're great, but
wasn't
anyway,
he
go for C.S. Lewis.
Wasn't he a convert?
Yes, he was an atheist.
I think that's part of the journey, that there's a clarity there because he did dig deep into our faith.
And he lost a lot. You lose a lot of respect when you move from becoming a very smart atheist to a naive Christian. And C.S. Lewis is so brilliant, right?
Yeah.
So those are two sources, at least, that I'm into right now. So, but I would say that as we were talking about compassion, to notice that at the base, and this is what gets into my dissertation because it gets into psychology. If you really notice at the base of when people become very kind of animated in conversations, you have to have the discipline of knowing that that's a person. And often they're kind of like pressured tone. They're afraid of something. They're afraid of something being taken away, right?
Right.
And you need to look at that yourself. When you become very, very, very pressured, I've got to say this, I've got to say this. Take time to think of, like, what am I afraid of? Am I afraid that if I don't state this, that I'm somehow selling out? Am I afraid that, we're going to hell in a handbasket, which we're not, unless we always have been. Go read the Old Testament, right? I mean.
Now, Linda, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to get to this, and we only have 3 minutes left. You work with the seminarians. And you see progressive and you see traditional. How do you work with them to help them have a sensitivity toward that time, trust, goodwill? Because they're going to be in parishes where people have either opinions about things.
Right.
So how do you work with...
And they care a lot about the church, so
Exactly.
they're very invested in it.
So
the first thing I do is I go through this particular lecture, which maybe we can talk about, but I make the distinction between what does it mean and what in your temperament makes you lean right or left.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of work on this in terms of babies and how do they act and temperament, and where our temperament tends to lead us to one side or the other.
Okay, good.
But we won't get into that. But first, it helps them to understand themselves.
Exactly.
Why do they lean in that direction? And once they understand themselves, because a lot of times people are like, well, there's no other way to think. Well, then who are all these other people that think differently? So you have to know your way of thinking is coming from a temperament. And so it has to do with human formation first. And that's how I begin before I get into all the other stuff.
Good. And then what do you hear from them in terms of what they're hearing in the parish? Do they come back and talk, because there's a great pastoral program up at Mundelein where guys are in the parishes. What do they come back with stories about questions about how to deal with some of what they've run into in terms of traditional progressive? Maybe give us one. Can you think of one example that would help us understand?
I think that most of the stuff can go down right now in terms of liturgy. So everybody thinks it's Catholic morality where all the stuff happens. It's really in the liturgy, right? So you might have somebody come back and it's somebody who's very frustrated with maybe the lackadaisical way in which they do liturgy, right? So then and they're legitimately frustrated. They feel this inside of themselves. And then it's a long conversation. We have to first discuss, is there something really illicit going on? Which takes a long time, because sometimes you assume there's something illicit going on when there's not.
Right.
So you need to have that. Is it your feeling, or is it because it's going against the rubrics? And there's a book that helps you with that.
Now, we only have a couple of minutes. Linda, anything coming up in terms of your area, University of St. Mary the Lake, that you want our listeners to know about before we close our program today?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead. Go.
If these things interest you, and these conversations, and just anything about the faith, I really invite you to look at our lay leadership program. Go onto the USML website. They'll probably put it up after this so you can see. But we have Come and Sees. You just go online and you can learn about all the ways just to engage in these conversations with other Catholics that are really into their faith and really just want to learn more.
Wonderful. Well, let me close today. Thank you, Dr. Linda Curry. It really is, you're an exceptional guest because you're so thoughtful and you're faithful. And I really appreciated our conversation this morning. Hopefully I'll be up to Mundelein soon. We can visit. I love that. I love that place. I love that place. Dr. Linda Curry, thank you for being on Catholic Chicago, WNDZ 750 AM, 312-255-8408. You can see us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Please say hi to everybody up at Mundelein for me, and we will be back in a few minutes with our next guest.
Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, Catholic Charities has continued to respond to the needs of people who come to us for assistance. More than 850,000 meals and food parcels have been offered to those who are struggling with food insecurity. Over 108,000 homelessness prevention hotline calls have been answered. Over 22,000 people have received mental health services, and $2 million in financial assistance has been provided to keep people housed. If you or someone you know needs assistance, email us at gethelp@catholiccharities.net. That's gethelp@catholiccharities.net. Or call 312-655-7700. That's 312-655-7700. Before, during, and after COVID-19, Catholic Charities is here for you.
The cemetery ministry is a core ministry of our Catholic faith tied to the corporal works of mercy. It's comforting to know that our Catholic cemeteries are caring for the remains of our loved ones awaiting the resurrection. There are 44 Archdiocese of Chicago Catholic cemeteries willing to help you in your time of loss. Call 708-449-6100 or visit CatholicCemeteriesChicago.org. Catholic Cemeteries, serving the Catholic community since 1837.
You're listening to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM. Every Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., the Archdiocese of Chicago presents programming about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Thanks for letting us be part of your morning. Now again, Catholic Chicago.
We're back, Catholic Chicago, WNDZ 750 AM, 312-255-8408, or you can go to, right now, youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Mark Tracy, Executive Director over at Holy Name, sitting in for my boss, the Rector, Father Greg Sakowitz, who is under the weather. He's taking a day off to recoup. He probably needs more than a day, but at least he's taking some time off to get better. I'd also like to thank Dr. Linda Curry from University of St. Mary of the Lake. What a wonderful first half of our show, which leads into another wonderful second half of our show. We have our guests are from the St. Pope John Paul II Newman Center at UIC. Our guests are Becca Ciar. I hope I pronounced that correct, Becca. And Father Tim Anastos. Tim, I'll call you Father Tim.
Great.
I know Tim from Mundelein days, but I've also been at different liturgies where you have preached, and you're absolutely an outstanding preacher. So let's start.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, let's start our show. Becca, why don't you start? Give us a little bit of background on how are you connected to the Newman Center, and then I'll ask Father Tim the same thing. A little bit of history, maybe, of the Newman Center too, so some people, our listeners, may not understand even what a Newman Center is.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Becca Ciar. I am the director of campus ministry at the St. John Paul II Newman Center. I've been here about 4 years, and I love it. It's a joy of my life.
You can tell on your face. You can tell on your face.
Yeah.
For our radio listeners, there's this big smile.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it really is. I always say, I love my job. My students say I say it too much sometimes, but it truly is so fun just to hang out with the students. But yeah, we have been here in our building that currently exists since 1980.
Well, let's back up, Becca. How did you get to that spot? What was your journey that landed you in ministry there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll try to make it really brief.
Okay.
I was a biochem major in undergrad and was considering pharmacy. And then into my junior year, I was preparing for pharmacy school interviews and preparing for the PCAT, and the number one question I was getting from friends who were helping prep me for interview work for the pharmacy school, they were asking, why do you want to be a pharmacist? And I was kind of deer in the headlights, I don't know. So I had never really discerned my vocation until that point. So I dove into prayer, and again, long story short, I just had it revealed to me that ministry was my calling and that God was really calling me to do it. So I did the complete 180 and entered into a master's in theology program out of the University of Notre Dame called ECHO, where I could serve the church for 2 years and work towards my master's. So I was placed in the Diocese of Joliet to work as a parish apprentice in Naperville at a parish there for 2 years, doing youth ministry, young adult ministry, and then just knew I really wanted to work with college students. So after I graduated the program, this job opened up, and I said yes and moved into the city, and I've been here ever since.
Beautiful. Now, this is a little aside, but someone who had your same journey, who I want to keep in prayer today, is Father Tom Bema. He studied at Butler, and he was going to be a pharmacist, and he probably came to the same thing, why, and then all of a sudden he realized he was called to be a priest. And Father Tim, you know Father Bema real well. Let's keep him in prayer. He had a stroke recently, and he's recovering now. So let's keep him in prayer. And Tim, what about you? What brought you, maybe just a little bit of your vocation journey, and then why you said yes to this assignment. Why'd you say yes?
Thank you, Mark. That's a great question. Well, I'm not really sure why I was called here. It's Jesus. I guess the answer is Jesus. But very briefly, I grew up in Mundelein, Illinois, right across the street from the seminary.
Right.
And then went on to Carmel High School. Then from Carmel High School, went to University of Illinois, where I studied linguistics. Definitely felt a call to the seminary. And so right after graduating University of Illinois, went into seminary, spent my 6 years in seminary, and became a priest, got ordained. I've been a priest for 4 years now. And my first 3 years were at Mary Seat of Wisdom in Park Ridge. And when I was there, I served as kind of the chaplain for all of the high school students. We have a really big youth program that has about 350 teens in the youth ministry program. And so I really dived into youth ministry and just being able to walk with teens on the journey of their faith. And so I think that's why maybe the cardinal and priests who are way more smart than me decided that I might fit well in college ministry after being with teens for a long time, just being with young people.
Were you involved at the Newman Center when you were in college?
Yes, exactly.
Which Newman Center was that? Champaign? No, where were
That
you?
was in Champaign. That was St. John's at the University of Illinois. So I found my vocation through a Newman Center.
Hello,
Same
listeners,
Father
listen
Connor,
up, listen up. Say that again. Could you say that again, Father Tim?
I found my vocation through the Newman Center.
Beautiful, beautiful. Becca, now let's talk a little bit about the Newman Center. Give us a little bit of background, maybe some programs, and then we'll dive a little deeper.
Sure. Yeah. The whole concept of a Newman Center came from St. John Henry Newman, who really just wanted to invest in students at the higher education level, essentially get the Catholic presence on a higher education level. So a lot of Newman Centers happen or exist really at secular institutions. So it's a space where students can come and be themselves and learn and ask questions as they're figuring out who they are and what they believe, especially when they're no longer under the umbrella of their parents. So here at UIC, again, like I was sharing a little earlier, we established this building that we're in right now in 1980, but the Newman Club and Association has kind of pre-existed that. UIC is unique in that we used to have a campus over near the Navy Pier area in Chicago. And then around the 60s, I think, is when they moved over to where they are now. And through that kind of transition, the students really rallied and asked Cardinal Cody at the time for a full-time chaplain to help assist them in their efforts to evangelize students and continue building community as they were asking questions and really trying to live out their faith as college students. So he said yes and gave them a chaplain. And ever since then, we've kind of had a full-time chaplain here at the center to walk with the students and accompany them. And a lot of the work that we're continuing to do is just based off the foundation that was started so many years ago. And as I said, this building was erected or really dedicated in 1980. And it was unique because when John Paul II was in Chicago in 1979, they got to ask him before he was even a saint if they could name the building after him. And he said yes. And so then, of course, we became, venerable and then blessed and now saint. So it's just really cool that we got to ask a now saint if we can name the building after him and to continue what his work was.
Exactly.
As Pope.
We're taking a little break. And Father Tim, when we come back, I want to ask you, from your experience at the Newman Center when you were a student to the students that you see now, what do you see? What are similarities? What are differences? We'll be back in a few minutes. WNDZ 750 AM, Catholic Chicago on your dial. Or you can go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. We're with Father Tim and Becca, and we're talking about the St. Pope John Paul II Newman Center at UIC. We'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
I feel special. I feel great. I got good grades.
We've seen a huge surge in our kids now meeting or exceeding grade level. Come check us out. You may have never thought we were an option before.
Caring adults make all the difference in the lives of adolescents. Catholic Charities understands this, and our mentorship program provides a free opportunity for youth living in Lake County to spend time, virtually, with volunteers who genuinely care about them. This program is ideal for youths age 9 to 12 who may need support navigating the challenges of childhood and early adolescence. Our amazing volunteers serve as friends and role models who help youth recognize their strengths and empower them to reach their full potential. Catholic Charities conducts a thorough background check on every volunteer, and our program coordinator closely monitors and supports each relationship. Mentoring is a fun after-school program that is totally different from remote learning. Virtual group sessions help youth enjoy fun activities with their peers, too. We're connecting youth with great role models. Join us today. To learn more, call 312-937-3375. That's 312-937-3375.
We're back. Catholic Chicago, WNDZ, 750 AM on your dial, 312-255-8408. You can also see us on youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Mark Teresi here sitting in for Father Greg Sakowicz, who is recouping from, looks like a summer cold, but as I told our receptionist at the Holy Name this morning, if he comes down, send him right back to his room to rest. We're here with Father Tim and with Becca. Tim, when we took a break, I had said I would ask you, you said part of your journey to the priesthood was importantly influenced by your involvement at the Newman Center. What do you see from where you were when you were at the Newman Center, and what do you see now in terms of the quality of the students? Don't forget, Father John Carchi, who's the rector at Mundelein, he was at Calvert House, and that influenced his journey to the priesthood. So, Tim, what do you see? What are some similarities, and what are some of the changes that you've seen in terms of how the ministry happens at Newman Center?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And I think there's so many similarities that I see with when I was at the Newman Center U of I, and with what I see now with students. And one of the main things is just this search for truth. Like every college kid in one way or another is searching for some truth, to grow in their knowledge, to grow in like what is the meaning of life. And so Newman Centers really provide that truth. As we know, Jesus Christ said, "I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life." And so we get to show them who that truth is. And that's what I discovered, at least when I was at the Newman Center.
And what about the students now that you see? They're pursuing that truth. Are there any differences that you see between, when you were there and now?
Definitely, thank you. The difference is definitely the fact that they are being bombarded way more with social media, with all these apps that they have, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, where it is very, very difficult to keep your mind set on the truth, that you're just distracted. There's so much distraction. I fall into distraction too. And so to be able to provide a safe haven where people can dialogue and have conversations and actually talk about real life and not just live their whole college life being distracted.
That's great. That's great. Becca, what about programs? And don't forget to give us contact information if there are young people listening, or if there are parents of young people listening. What kind of programs are there, and how do they contact you?
Yeah, so we do a variety of different things here. First and foremost, it's just building community. So we offer a lot of different social events for students just to come and meet one another and just build that community with one another, knowing that we're all pursuing the same thing, that search of truth that Father Tim was talking about. We have Bible studies. We have focused missionaries on campus that lead Bible studies, and they train students to lead Bible studies too, regularly, multiple days during the week. We have retreats, we have daily mass, we have Sunday mass, confession opportunities, adoration, praise and worship nights, you name it. There's so many different ways that students can come and just learn and be as they discover who they are. And then, our contact info. So we are on social media on Facebook and Instagram. It's at JP2 Newman. And then
the number 2, not the Roman numeral, the number 2.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, the number 2.
Okay.
But it's jp2newman.org is our website where people can learn more about the programming that we're doing. They can meet our staff. We have all of our staff pictures and contact info there. Or if they do want to support us in our ministry, we'll gladly take it, whether prayers or financial support, and people can support us on our website as well.
And then maybe Tim and Becca, how are you preparing for the new school? I imagine, even though people take classes all year, you're preparing for the new school year, a new influx of students. How do you let them know you're around?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So it's really beautiful. We've formed this really amazing relationship with the school. So every student that comes through, their orientation takes what's called a religious preference survey. So it's not required, it's completely optional. Most of the students will take it, but that allows us to get a list of every single student who's self-identifying as Catholic as they come into the school. So immediately we have thousands of students' names, emails, phone numbers that we can contact them and say, hey, we're here, we'd love to meet you. We'll share about our Welcome Week activities, which we usually have several, just so students can come and learn about the Newman Center and start building that community. And then, we send emails, we'll do social media posts. So really any way that we possibly can to get the word out about who we are and what we're doing is going to be helpful to meet those students. And then personal invite. We'll have our students and missionaries go out on campus, and our staff really to go out on campus just to meet the students and hang out with them and invite them to our center.
Now, Tim, is there Sunday Mass there for the students, or how does that work?
There's Sunday Mass at 11 a.m. and then 7 p.m. I believe.
I don't want to take people away from their parishes, but is anybody welcome? Like at the Shield on Northwestern, anybody can come to the Mass.
Absolutely, everyone is welcome, and we have daily Mass every day here now during the summer, and that's one thing that we have a lot of locals around the area who come to Mass as well, and everyone is welcome.
What time is that Mass?
That's at 12:05.
And give people the address too, because some people may have heard the name but not know exactly how to get there.
Yeah, it's 700 South Morgan Street. So we're in kind of the Little Italy area, 700 South Morgan Street. We do have a small parking lot that's available for Mass. So if anyone's driving, they can come, or we're right off the Blue Line, the UIC Halstead Blue Line stop as well. Good.
Well, we're going to take a little break. WNDZ 750 AM, Catholic Chicago, 312-255-8408, or you can go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago, and we will be back to continue our conversation of the John Paul II Newman Center at UIC with Becca, Father Tim. We'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
Do you have an old bicycle that's not being used? Consider donating it to Catholic Charities Veterans Bike Project of Lake County. Skilled volunteers are refurbishing bicycles to make them safe and ready to be used by veterans to get to and from their new places of work. We also gratefully accept financial contributions that are used to purchase bike helmets and other safety accessories. Our veterans have faithfully served the United States, and now it is our privilege to serve them. For more information on the Veterans Bike Project of Lake County, call 847-782-4219. That's 847-782-4219.
We're back, Catholic Chicago, WNDZ 750 AM, Catholic Chicago, 312-255-8408, or you can go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. I'd like to ask both of you a question that really surfaced in the earlier part of our program with Dr. Linda Curry. I'd be curious, as you work with students at the college age, and I would imagine college age, we're talking like 18, 19 to 25, and maybe some older students too. But she talked about the polarization of traditional and progressive Catholics. And I was wondering, as you look at this young people population, two things. What are real Catholic issues that hit the table there with traditional, progressive, I'd call on the fence, and those who are searching in terms of faith? What are issues that hit the table with your population? And then how do you work with folks? And I know, Becca, you had mentioned a retreat. Just expand your thinking for me on, you're not going to have everybody walking through the door thinking the same thing. So how do you work with that? Maybe Becca first and then Father Tim?
Yeah, I'd say definitely one of the issues I've seen students kind of wrestling with is the issues of morality, right? As they're figuring out, again, like I said, who they are. And the reality is, like, we are sexual beings, right? And so, especially in college, we're trying to define what does that mean in light of our faith. And so, at least here, that's the beauty of Newman Centers, is that you really could engage in conversations with one another. So through the Bible studies, or we have another initiative. This is what makes UIC unique, is that we're starting what's called Core Coffee. So it's a coffee shop. It's actually in our Newman Center. And our hope and desire is that any student, regardless of their faith background, whether they're Catholic or not, can come and get a really good cup of coffee and have really good conversations with one another, really honest conversations with one another about some of these issues that they're struggling with or learning about, and trying to learn what the church teaches on these issues. So that's one of the ways that we do, is just to create the environment for those conversations to happen, and then having, the support of the staff there that are, a little bit more well-versed or trained in what the teaching is, to just kind of guide and support and to share resources so we can learn together as we're accompanying each other.
So as you look at it, there's a faithfulness to what you're doing there in terms of the teachings of the church, but there's an openness for people to explore what that means in their lives right now. So that's
Right.
wonderful. And Father Tim, what about you?
Yeah, and I agree with everything that Becca said about morality. And just to add to that, another thing that just is a big concern that can be polarizing is just identity. Like, what are people's identities, how they see themselves? Just trying to figure out their own identity is a huge thing as a college student, because there's so many things from the external that is telling them, no, you need to identify like this, or whatever it might be. Back when John Paul II was working with young people, it was that people's identity was just their work, with everything that was going on with communism. But for now, the culture is saying you need to choose your own identity. And so through the Newman Center, through Core Coffee, through the renovation that we're doing in the chapel, everything is pointing towards how you have an identity. And that is you're a son or a daughter of the Lord, and that you are loved.
Beautiful.
So,
and that's just so 700 North Morgan is the address where the coffee shop is. South Morgan, which is also where the coffee shop is. Okay, great. Now, my last question before we have to close for both of you is, Jim Close, when I was at Mercy Home, always asked the young people this, but and you're young people. Compared to me, you're really young. What are your dreams? What are your dreams for the Newman Center? Becca, you've invested 4 years of your life, and Father Tim, you're investing your priestly ministry. What are your dreams for the place? Becca and then Tim?
Yeah, I think when I first started here, and even when Father Connor, our director and chaplain, started, both of us had this vision of just making this Newman Center an iconic spot on campus, that every single student, regardless if they're Catholic or not, know that there's truth, beauty, and goodness that can be found here. So that's one of the dreams, is that no matter who you are at UIC, you know this center, or at least have heard of this center and desire to come and check it out yourself. But I think the ultimate goal is to send out missionary disciples into the world.
Beautiful.
Like, how can we train our students to be disciples, but also to make disciples themselves? Because they're the ones who are spending the time with their peers, they're with their families. So they're really the ones that are going to inspire this change on campus and in our city. And so how can we best train them and equip them and accompany them so that they can be these missionary disciples out on campus and in the world?
Beautiful. Mother Teresa said one smile makes a difference in the world. Father Tim, what about you?
Yeah, thanks for asking the question. It's a really good question. First of all, my dream is to eventually beat Becca in ping pong one of these days.
That may be a dream.
The more important hope and dream is to be able to witness at least one of the students' weddings, that they fulfill their vocation to marriage, that I get to be at one of our students' ordinations to the priesthood, and that I get to be at one of the students' religious professions. Just to witness the fruit that can come from Newman Center College ministry.
And the Newman Centers are a seedbed for vocations to priestly ministry and to the religious life, and you folks are vocation directors on that campus. So I'd like to thank Becca Ciar and Father Tim Anastos for their time spending with us here at Catholic Chicago, talking about the St. John Paul II Newman Center at UIC 700 South Morgan. Is it JP number 2? The website
Newman.
real quick. Go ahead.
JP2Newman.org or at JP2Newman on our social media.
Wonderful. Thanks, Becca. Thanks to all of our listeners for listening to Catholic Chicago today. Get well, Father Greg. And blessings to you this week and this weekend.
Join us every Monday through Friday at this time for Catholic Chicago. You can stream our programs live or listen to past programs by visiting our website, archchicago.org, and clicking on Radio TV. And please connect with Catholic Chicago on social media.